Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. President Trump announced plans to possibly impose 25% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum imports, a move that could have a devastating impact on our economy. So how concerned are you with these latest threats? And which political party do you think is best equipped to take on Trump? And can you tell the difference between AI and your financial advisor? We'll look at the rise of AI scams and what you can do to keep your assets safe. I'm Amy Bell in for Michelle Elliott, and this is BC Today. And thank you for joining us on radio, TV, and live stream. You can call us now on our top story. How concerned are you with President Trump's plan to level tariffs on steel and aluminum imports? And which federal party leader do you think will be best at dealing with President Trump? Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also call 1-800-825-5950 or hit pound 690 or email us anytime, bctoday@cbc.ca. So this week, the threat of looming tariffs for imports into the U.S. hangs over Canadians and our leaders. U.S. President Donald Trump is promising the United States will impose 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports, including from Canada and Mexico. This is a move that prompted a sharp response from the federal conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, today.
We will retaliate in kind with matching tariffs on American aluminum and steel, all of the proceeds of which will be given back to our steel and aluminum industry, and any surplus will be given in tax relief for our people.
That was Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre speaking on a plan for retaliatory taxes. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh also responded on retaliation earlier today.
We've got to fight back. We got to punch back with retaliatory tariffs. That's step one. And we also have to put in place supports for the workers impacted. Now for steel and aluminum, but in general, we can't just wait till the last minute and scramble. We know that the auto sector is also worried about impacts on workers. Our first priority is to stop these tariffs, but then alongside that, we're going to make sure we don't let workers bear the brunt of it, so workers get supported.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. And with a federal election on the horizon this year, tariff threats, among other ripple effects from Trump's policies, could factor into the ballot, namely which leader or party can best protect Canada from Donald Trump's threats. So we're asking you now, which federal leader candidate is best equipped to deal with Trump? Call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone, or email bctoday@cbc.ca. And joining me today is Sanjay Jeram. He is a senior lecturer in the Department of Political Science at Simon Fraser University. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming on the show.
Good afternoon, Amy.
So what is going through your mind now with yet another round of threats of tariffs from Donald Trump coming our way?
Well, we've been here before. This is not the first time that steel and aluminum have been subject to tariffs by Trump.
Right, in his first term.
Correct, right. And so obviously we have a playbook to draw upon, and you can hear in what was said by Poilievre and by Jagmeet Singh that there's some slight differences in their kind of approach and rhetoric, but ultimately it's the same kind of retaliatory tariffs that we used last time. The situation cooler has prevailed, and we got through that. So again, does this change a whole lot in terms of the bigger picture here? The question is really whether Trump, is this something different or unique, or is this part of the sort of grand strategy that everybody seems to think that he's trying to use, is to renegotiate the free trade agreement, or maybe ultimately, in this sort of, some people are speculating now, especially after the release of the Trudeau conference and the statement that he made, is he really just trying to, basically bring us to submission so that he can essentially annex Canada? Now, other than that, I don't know this is really that unique within, obviously the other the across-the-board tariffs require a more sort of fine-combed response as a means to kind of deal with it. Here, we kind of know what to do. So I don't think, as they as they start to hit, I think we'll kind of see the sort of retaliation come through our government.
And there, when we speak of Trump, there always seems to be, do you take him at face value? Do you sort of see what he's perhaps trying to distract from or what his ulterior motive is? So it seems with anything that he says or threatens, there's a lot of layers that people and any prospective leader of the country would sort of have to go through to gauge what the impact will ultimately be.
That's right. I mean, is this specifically about what he feels is an unfair deal with regards to steel and aluminum? Unlikely at this point, right? Given that he's already played his hand, he's played his cards already, and so it's for most people will probably land on the fact that this is a part of his negotiating strategy, even though we don't know what exactly he wants in this strategy. We may, again, like I already mentioned, we have some ideas, and people would disagree, and those who know him would disagree on what exactly his end goal is. But that's what at this point. So it's a little bit different than Trump 1.0, where we could sort of take steel and aluminum tariffs for what they were, use our muscle, which we have in turn for critical minerals and other kinds of things, and sort of slapping retaliatory tariffs and essentially bringing about a resolution. But I don't think that's really what's going to happen this time. We may use the same tools, but it's not going to end this issue.
Yeah. I do have a couple of callers that I'd like to bring in. First, we'll go to Rick in Burnaby. Hi, Rick.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for joining the show. What do you think a leader needs to do to protect our country from Trump?
They have to work together. All the parties have to work together, just like if there was a war. This is kind of a war. It's an economic war. We have to work together. All three parties or four parties, whatever it is, have to work together, and the provinces and everyone. If we have to make deals with other countries to send some of our products, if we have to stop certain chemicals and minerals going to the States that they need, then we have to do stuff like that. We have to play hardball with this guy. We got just over 990 days to go. We got to get through those 990 days, and then sanity will come back, and our two countries will be brothers again, because that's what we are. We have fought in every war together. We have just stuck up for each other. We go down there, they come up here. We treat each other with respect, and all that's gone right now. It's gone because of one human being, or is a human, but one person is deciding that we're not together anymore. So I would play hardball with him. That's what he likes. He likes to play hardball. So I would play hardball. I'd make him build a wall and make him pay for it.
All right, Rick, thank you.
I would put tariffs on everything I could.
All right, thank you for that, Rick. And Sanjay, you sort of had 2 points there that we, no one person is able to sort of take on Trump, that we do need to see more unifying, perhaps government and across party lines. But there's also that thought that we just need to, retaliate as quickly and powerfully as we can with our own tariffs and our own sort of not punishments, but I guess threats that we'll follow through with. Where do you sort of lie with that? Is that even a possibility that we could see this opening up more government cooperation among the parties?
So on the latter point, it's interesting, right? So if we observe just the spontaneous behavior, forget about government action for a second, the behavior of Canadians in the past couple of weeks, we see an interesting phenomenon of liberal nationalism, and usually for Canadians, nationalism is an uncomfortable subject. But in the case where I think I'm comfortable, expressing my opinion here, I think in the circumstances when that nationalism, that sort of unity, and looking at your neighbor as a compatriot and the other out across the border as the quote unquote not enemy, but in this particular moment as the enemy, as long as it's based on matters of sort of sovereignty, economics, and it doesn't sort of descend into sort of cultural stereotypes or use race, it can be an effective way. And I think it's something that would be looked back at the history of politics. It's always been something that has allowed countries to deal with crises like this. Because if people looked at each other and think about, well, what do I get out of the tariffs? Can I win this battle? What exactly? And thought, because there would be, it'd be really easy for us to sort of sit around and think about, well, what can I get out of this, or what exact set of policies will help me? But we're seeing a lot of behavior that, people are not buying American, is that really helping their day-to-day lives?
Right.
No, they're doing it because they feel a sense of national unity. So I think there is something there, and there's something that the parties can tap on. And I think, historically and currently, the Liberals have done a little better sort of using that. It's not always, I think, sometimes it's not called for, and they've sometimes used it inappropriately. But at the moment, I think tapping on that is fine. Now, the other question is, can the parties use this, or will there be some sort of long-term sort of greater cooperation, or at least medium-term cooperation between the parties?
Sure.
That's a tougher question to ask. I think at the moment, given how sensitive the political situation is, we're facing an election, it's a little bit hard for, especially, let's say, a government in waiting, as at least the polls tell us that they are, the Conservatives, to do that, because the reality is doing so could cost them votes, because people tend to credit the government of the day for whatever sort of feelings they have about what is happening, right? And I think for the same reasons why the NDP hasn't really been credited for some of the popular sort of pressure or the popular moves that the Liberals made that they really were a part of, credit hasn't really been sort of publicly distributed to them. For the same reason, I think that the Conservatives will be wary of being, jumping on the bandwagon with the Liberals in a sort of, let's hold hands and try to get through this type of way, because that may compromise their lead in the polls. And that's just the nature of politics. So, I'll be interested to see how they sort of walk that tightrope in terms of trying to, both not antagonize, because continuing to polarize may also cost them, but at the same time, not continuing to demonstrate differences may lose some of their softer voters.
All right. Time for a couple more calls. We'll go to Fiona in Vancouver. Hi, Fiona. How are you feeling about these tariffs and leadership of the country?
Yeah, well, I have to start off by saying I think that Jagmeet Singh has been very articulate in the way he's been weighing in on this. Given the way the votes typically go in Canada, I would say probably Mark Carney would be the best to deal with Trump, simply because Pierre Poilievre has been officially endorsed by Musk. And all you have to do is look at the mischief he's been at worldwide. They've been cluster bombing, Trump and him, the whole world with threats. And, for him to support Poilievre is really questionable. So it makes me very nervous. You just have to see what's going on in the United States with the way they're gutting their own government to realize that they have no off switch.
All right. I appreciate that point of view, Fiona. Thank you so much. We'll get in a call now from Terry in Ladysmith. Hi, Terry.
Well, good afternoon.
And how are you feeling about this latest round of tariff threats and who you might be comfortable leading the country going head-to-head against Trump?
Well, the tariffs are, they've been long exposed not to work. This tariff war around the world, we've seen it just collapsed. The United States government tried to collapse the Russian economy, and of course it didn't work. Their effort fell flat on its face. So that's the current prime example that this whole thing doesn't work. Trump is just saber rattling. He's grabbing headlines. He's grabbing media attention throughout news cycles. That's his strategy. And the second thing is no one takes him seriously about Canada as the 51st state. It's just absurd. So it's part of the saber rattling, grabbing headline strategy. And secondly, as far as the Canadian political leaders go, I think it's the best opportunity to put the partisanship aside. This isn't about partisanship. This is about unity, an opportunity to show Canadian unity through political leadership. And I think it would be a mistake for any Canadian delegation, to go to Washington to meet with the president. The president is like the bully in the schoolyard, and I think the correct response is simply to let him know that the doors are open in Ottawa. You're welcome to come anytime. we're ready to sit down and talk.
All right,
But
Terry.
don't go to Washington.
Okay, we will have to leave it there for time. Terry and Sanjay, I know that you do have other commitments, and so we will have to leave it there for today, but I suspect we'll be talking to you again very shortly, as this will be an ongoing point of discussion.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. That was Sanjay Jeram, a senior lecturer in the Department of Political Science at Simon Fraser University. And we've received a few emails while we've been doing this segment. We have one from Jesse. Jesse in Penticton writes, I personally believe that the Liberals will be best suited to support Canada against a bullying United States government. Unfortunately, in my writing in the BC Interior, the Liberals have no presence, and the Conservative nomination will be more competitive than the election itself. I would like to see the Liberals try in rural areas, as we are left with essentially no options to help them. It is 12:21, and you are listening and watching BC Today. And Yvonne in Echo Bay writes, wouldn't it be astonishing if the parties actually all, including Green, work together to figure something out? Wow. Deborah on Bowen Island writes, I believe the Liberal government under Prime Minister Trudeau and his hardworking, experienced cabinet ministers, especially July, LeBlanc, and McGuinty, are doing very well and making their very best efforts to defend our country. When a new Liberal leader is chosen, I strongly believe Mr. Mark Carney, with his significant leadership and negotiating experience, will do an excellent job of protecting Canadian rights, resources, and sovereignty. And I appreciate all of the emails and calls that we received on this topic. We are still waiting to hear the very latest from President Trump after he announced yesterday that he planned to impose 25% tariffs for the aluminum and steel imports for Mexico and Canada. And we will have more on this in just a few minutes when we hear from United Steelworkers. You can always call us and email us your thoughts on this, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, and email us anytime, bctoday@cbc.ca. And we are expecting to hear more today from President Trump on his promised 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports and what the impact could be on those sectors. Catherine Cobden is the president and CEO of the Canadian Steel Producers Association, and she's hoping that our country will ultimately be exempt from the threat.
As the United States' largest trading partner on steel, we represent about 20% of all of their steel imports, and they represent about 40% of ours. So we are very highly integrated, very dependent on each other economically, and tariffs will have devastating effects on both sides of the border. So job one needs to be to get Canada excluded.
So how concerned are you about these latest tariff threats, and how should the government handle this? Call 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell. For more on this, we are joined by Guio Jacinto, lead researcher on the tariff issue with the Canadian National Office, United Steelworkers. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. A busy day for you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So what is your reaction to the 25% tariffs Trump is proposing for steel and aluminum imports?
Yeah, I mean, certainly disappointed, maybe not entirely unexpected. I think the timing right before the Super Bowl was probably a little bit unexpected. I was hoping to enjoy my weekend, but that didn't happen. So yeah, I mean, we knew something was going to come down at some point. Just a little bit unexpected regarding the timing.
And what are the impacts that we will see here in Canada? We've been through this before in President Trump's first term. He did impose those tariffs before we were deemed exempt after a year. But what did we see while we had those tariffs in place?
Yeah, I mean, back in 2018 to 2019, we did experience some layoffs, about 800 steelworkers across the country in the steel industry specifically. The industry also saw some declines in production and exports to the United States, which was, I guess, the intended objective of the Trump tariffs at the time, and not entirely surprising. I think what's a little bit different this time around is there's two additional variables, right? Like, we're still under the cloud of additional potential, like, generalized tariffs or a blanket tariff, which would also include items that have steel within them, that like steel products, right? So that would further impact Canadian steel production if those blanket tariffs would be introduced. And the second variable, which is really a legacy of the first Trump presidency, is as a result of the protectionism of the first Trump presidency with the steel industry in particular, U.S. steel producers really took that opportunity to reinvest in their steel capacity and expanding steel capacity. So they've added quite a bit and spent quite a bit of money in investment capital. And so, like, one of my fears in particular is if Canada gets partially or a little bit, they lose their market share in the U.S. There's a lot new additional capacity online in the U.S. that could take that share from Canada and really undermine our market position in the United States in the long term.
And you did sort of question Trump's timing of this, ahead of the Super Bowl when he's got an enormous audience. Do you feel that this is just, him sort of posturing, or is there an ulterior motive that he's getting at as to why he's announcing these tariffs now? He had already said we had a month sort of respite from the other proposed tariffs that he had talked about. So I guess a lot of people are surprised that he's come out with new tariffs so soon after that.
Yeah, and that's a good question. And I generally don't want to speculate on what Donald Trump's logistical and logic is when he makes decisions. So there was a number of when the president signed the America First trade policy, there were a number of anticipated reviews and studies. One focused on the steel industry, a few others on persistent countries that the United States has persistent trade deficits with. So I mean, we knew that the Trump administration we're going to be reviewing these things, and Canada has a persistent or a pretty consistent trade surplus with the United States, and we knew that they were going to take a look at the current tariff regime on steel and aluminum, particularly in the U.S., and that was outlined in the America First policy. So we knew that at some level, some type of review was going to come. We didn't know that the action would be taken, of course. We couldn't predict that, but yeah.
And what are you, I guess, hoping the government will do, in terms of I guess in reaction to these? We are in that, a strange spot where our government is in flux right now, and we're awaiting, all the new leaders and awaiting a possible election. So do you feel this is very bad timing to try and combat these tariffs?
Yeah, no, it's certainly not the best timing. I think there's a few immediate measures that we would like to see. I think counter tariffs or retaliatory tariffs would certainly be on the table, but I'd probably focus on back in 2018, the federal government did pursue safeguard measures. So in the event of steel being diverted from the U.S. market and being diverted into the Canadian market, that would flood our market. And so the feds in 2018 did institute that, and they used Section 53 and 55 of the customs tariff. We would strongly encourage the federal government to consider that if these tariffs do go through. And I think also, like, in the longer term, I also, like I said before, the steel industry and the Canadian steel industry is very export oriented and export dependent. And I think it would be in our national interest to create a little bit more buffer and reliance and focus on our domestic market. And I think the federal government can do quite a bit in that regard, in mandating the use or encouraging the use of of Canadian-made steel in public infrastructure projects. And I think that would be a real strong measure to support Canadian steel producers and Canadian steel workers and really help us reorient our domestic economy towards just domestic market as well, and not be as dependent on export markets.
Right. Guio, I really appreciate you taking the time with us today. I hope that you do get a chance to relax at some point. I know the weekend wasn't a relaxing one for you, so thank you.
For sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Guio Jacinto is with the Canadian National Office, United Steelworkers, and he joined us from Hamilton, Ontario. It is 12:31, and this is BC Today on CBC, and it is time now for the CBC News with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Few details have been released about an incident yesterday that ended with officers shooting and killing a person outside a Surrey elementary school. Police have only said there was what they call an interaction between officers and the victim. The victim has not been publicly identified. BC's Police Oversight Agency is investigating. Vancouver police say the cost of policing Taylor Swift's 3 concerts back in December was above $940,000. The VPD says about 700 officers were deployed. Chief Adam Palmer says the economic impact to the city was estimated at $157 million. And a killer whale that was twice seen carrying the body of 2 of her dead calves has been spotted with her pod. The Orca Behavior Institute says Talakwa was seen off San Juan Island. The female killer whale had been spotted carrying the body of her dead calf in the waters off Victoria last month. She was also seen pushing the body of another dead newborn for 17 days back in 2018. And now the forecast on the north coast, sunny and windy this afternoon with a high of 2. Highs around -14 with lots of sunshine in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, clearing with a high of -14 as well. Highs around -6 and sunny this afternoon in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, clearing with a high of -5. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, lots of sunshine this afternoon with highs around 2 degrees. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Robert. Did you have a good weekend?
I did.
Excellent.
Watched a bit of Super Bowl.
Yeah, a little bit of Super Bowl.
Not a great game.
Well, it depends what team you're rooting for.
I suppose. But even if you're an Eagles fan, you want it to be close.
It's true. It was not the most exciting of games.
It was not.
I will agree.
Very uneven.
All right. Thank you for that, Robert.
Sure.
We'll talk to you tomorrow. And this year, we welcomed a new president and CEO here at CBC Radio Canada. She is Marie-Philippe Bouchard, who started her role on January 3rd after being appointed last October. She starts her job amidst an unrelenting news cycle and at a time when many are questioning the necessity of a public broadcaster. How will she handle the discourse surrounding the possible defunding of CBC? This is what she told the Early Edition this morning.
I think the best defense is really listening, for one thing, because there are some arguments that are worth listening to in terms of whether or not we can expand our coverage, whether or not we can, go back to locations where we have not been historically or not been recently, as well as making sure that people are aware of what value we bring, because not only do we bring news and information, but we're also of enormous support to this country's culture and creative industries.
So could you tell the difference between a financial advisor and artificial intelligence? Because with the rise of artificial intelligence, or AI, there is also a rise in AI scams, especially scams targeting your investment money. So how concerned are you about artificial intelligence scams and fraud? And what should be done to curb AI fraud? You can call us now at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone, and you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. And the British Columbia Securities Commission is trying to combat the fraudsters by launching a new awareness campaign.
They can deep fake your accountant
and sound like my broker too.
Oh, it's all part of their trap. So you'll invest in a bunch of crap.
But all's not lost thanks to the BC Securities Commission. They can help us fight AI scammers and their evil plan.
They say we should take it slow. Think for a minute or two.
And do all the research that we can do.
And that was just a bit of the BC Securities Commission ad campaign warning British Columbians of the dangers of AI investment scams. Joining us now is Pam McDonald, the Commissioner's Director of Communications, and Amiri, Assistant Professor in the School of Computing Science at Simon Fraser University. Good afternoon to both of you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us on what it continues to just be a point of discussion. It seems AI impacting so many different areas that we have in our lives, but this one especially to do with investment fraud. So I appreciate you both being here to share your voices. Pam, I'll start with you. What can you tell us about the extent of just how AI technologies are being used in investment scams and fraud?
Mm-hmm. Well, we know that these scammers who are typically overseas, so they're not in British Columbia on our doorstep,
right.
So very hard for us to get at. But what they are doing is they're creating fake websites. They're creating fake dating profiles and trying to lure people in that way. They are cloning voices, actually stealing people's voices. And they are, creating celebrities, using celebrities, media personalities, and famous people. And in the case of investment fraud, using these people to attempt to have them endorse a particular investment, which is probably just a scam.
And Ali, I see you nodding when she's talking about all the various ways that people are set up for these scams, impersonating voices, impersonating somebody you're romantically interested in, impersonating a celebrity. How easy is this technology to use, and how quickly is it, changing and impacting these sort of operations?
Yeah, it's amazing. Deepfake started to get popular on social media a few years ago with a technique called face swap. Basically, face swap means that you take the face of a person, usually a famous individual, and then you paste it on top of the face of another person in another video saying things and doing actions. This is not new. It has been around for several years in VFX, but it was extremely costly and it needed a lot of extensive artist work. But now, because of this technology that we call it deep learning, and a lot of tools that are available to the public, this is extremely easy now. You just need to have a laptop and access to some of these tools, and then you can turn every person to another. You can make them say things that you want, and also you can clone voices. You can change the faces. You can even change the lips. And it's extremely difficult to detect what is fake and what is real.
And I feel it's, as you said, it was a couple of years ago that we started seeing these deep fakes. And I feel at first they were fairly easy, or easier at least, to tell that there was something off, that they were definitely not real. And it is very difficult now to tell, just that technology has just made a huge jump in such a short amount of time. And I think that is what's terrifying, is there's just no sense that we're able to keep up with it. Pam, do we know how much money at this point these various scams have caused people?
We can estimate.
Sure.
So
fair.
we estimate that British Columbians probably lost somewhere in the realm of $1 billion last year to investment fraud, and much of that would have been AI investment fraud. And that's just British Columbia, so there are Canadians losing billions of dollars. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre actually suggests that only 5 to 10% of Canadians report losses.
Well, and I would think too, and Ali, maybe you would be able to speak this. Is there a bit of a embarrassment or shame, not only to have been scammed and been part of a fraud, but then to realize it wasn't even a real person necessarily that you fell for or you were scammed. And so, as a society, we're still coming to terms with how something completely fake is able to sort of pull a fast one on a legitimate human being. It's an interesting ethical issue almost. Pam, if you want to speak to that, and then I'll get to you in a second, Ali.
Yes, in fact, I was going to add something to my last response, Amy, and that is that the effects of investment fraud are devastating, and often people don't want to talk about them. It affects people's health, their emotional health, their marriages. And, one of the things that's also terrible is that if you're an older person, and you get scammed and you often invest a lot of your life savings, you cannot go back into the workplace and make this money back. So the impacts are quite devastating. Enormous social harm is being created.
And Ali, I think you can speak to that as well. Removed from the financial devastation, the impact that AI is having on society and how people interact with that, especially if it has ended up being harmful to them. How is the society, or how is, I guess the industry trying to keep up with that and trying to address that issue?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't be embarrassed of being deceived by these videos because they are extremely believable.
Right.
But we need to be ready that these the technologies are available. They're going to get better and better through the time. And we need to make sure that we are educated enough so that we don't make decisions that are harmful to us. So there are some activities and involvements from the industry as well to make sure that these deepfake videos and audios can be detected. Very similar to the viruses that we had on the computer before. Now there are technologies that can detect deepfake, basically. But I would say people should use their common sense, and they don't give out their personal information, their financial information, just because they're seeing something on the web, because now it's extremely difficult to understand what is real, what is fake.
I just want to take in a call, but of course we'd love to have people, if they have any experience with any of these AI scams, if they want some advice on what they can do to possibly avoid them in the future, just feel free to give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. We'd love to have you be a part of our conversation. We do have a call from William in Vancouver. Hi, William. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
And so, do you have any concerns about this sort of wave of AI frauds?
Yes, I certainly do. I'm familiar with scams myself. I mean, I was myself. And my concern is you got the computing science technologists there, and I'm just wondering, with our increasing technology, it seems to be that when I send money somewhere, it's undetermined where it goes and who it went to. But it's money. It's my money. And shouldn't banks or people understand that, we send money digitally now? And why can't it be determined where my money went and who got it and why they picked it up and moved on?
That's a very valid point, William, and I do thank you for joining us. And I suppose that is the question, Pam. We know that these frauds are happening. We know, Ali, that the AI is becoming increasingly sophisticated. Why are we not able to keep up with perhaps being able to find these people and punish them, and also help people get their money back? There seems to be, a bit of a hurdle for a lot of people that have been scammed.
Yes. So the internet is not regulated.
Right. Okay.
And that's a big problem. What's happening here is that this is very sophisticated technologically, as Ali has said, but it's happening predominantly in other countries. So this is offshore organized crime. These are people in other countries who are hiding behind layers of technology, and we cannot get at them.
Right. Okay.
And that's why your first line of defense has to be you. We have traditional enforcement tools like investigating, prosecuting, and sanctioning, but we cannot use those in this environment. And that's why, and Ali said this as well, the best thing that you can do for yourself is to become educated. And that's the intent of this advertising campaign that we've just put out, is to get smart, to learn how to protect yourself, understand the signs, know what to do.
And it is, I mean, it's a bit of a humorous take, tongue-in-cheek take. It definitely grabs your attention. Even if you're looking at it casually and can't really hear what they're saying, it is unsettling. We know that it's not real somehow. But is there something to be said for tackling this in a bit of a more lighthearted, humorous way to sort of break down that shame and those barriers that people have when it does happen to them?
Absolutely. I mean, we wanted to break through to people. A lot of young people, of course, are using the internet. They're getting investment advice on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram. And so we wanted just to break through a very crowded online space and try and reach people using humor, a bit of cheeky language, but something that they could relate to.
And Ali, I want to ask you, we say we need to be, very diligent and be aware of this and do our research, but how can somebody get up to speed in sort of, AI literacy in a sense, to know what to look out for, to know what it's capable of, and to also know that they have to keep up with it ever changing and improving?
That's a very good question. I think it's very difficult, but being curious about the technology and what's out there, and also being on the platforms and following, I think the reliable sources that are designed for such education would be very helpful. And also, I think in general, this should be the public knowledge that we shouldn't trust what we see anymore. We need to be a little bit skeptical about everything that is out there. Make sure that we fact check everything that we see with reliable sources. And I think now we have the social media, and a lot of people were thinking that we are maybe going away from reliable news and newspapers and websites. But I think now we are getting a little bit back to that situation that we need to only rely resources that are reliant, that are reliable, and they are not just on the social media without any sources. So I think the best way is to pick the relevant and reliable resources, and to make sure that we are educating ourselves with everything, with all the information that is available on the internet.
We need to swing the pendulum a little bit back towards, not so much online, the more hard copy, tried and true methods. We do have a call now from Rob in Vancouver. Hi, Rob.
Hello.
And so what are your thoughts? Do you have any experience with these AI attempted scams?
Well, what I want to bring up is I see a lot of ads for scam products or get-rich-quick schemes on YouTube. It's just rampant on YouTube. Elon Musk invented this thing that totally reduces your electricity usage or whatever. And my question is, where is our government in all of this? We would never just say, allow a TV station to say, there's no way we can possibly control these fake ads. We just sell ads to whoever, but we're just letting YouTube just kind of, they probably have automated processes or whatever, no humans involved, and these ads just go onto YouTube. Famously, I remember in the 90s, Bill Clinton said, we're not going to regulate the internet. And that was such a mistake, and Facebook as well. We would never allow a TV station or a radio station to just throw up their hands and say, oh, hey, there's no way we can screen these like scam ads, but we're letting Facebook do it, Instagram do it. No, our government should be forcing them to do whatever it takes, hire the personnel to, at least on those platforms, block at least the fake ads and the accounts. And if it lowers their profit margin, well, too bad for them. Cry me a river, Mark Zuckerberg. Like, our governments are just being completely abandoning us in this new era of a different mode of communication, and they're not doing anything to protect us from these ads. And we should be really furious about it.
I agree, and I thank you for calling in, Rob. And I think that is something that a lot of people are calling for is as this sector is ramping up, governments need to step in. As you said, we don't have jurisdiction over the internet, but we can't allow it to just continually grow unchecked, especially when we see so many people paying the ultimate price financially as well. A couple of emails have come in as well. Karen in Caslow asks, do your guests know who are the people getting rich behind these AI scams? Do we have any sense of who is making profit of this? I guess not, if we're not able to catch them.
That's the problem. We don't know who these people are. There's some things that we can do to tackle the problem. We can take down websites. We can work with internet service providers and we can take down websites. But I will tell you, the problem is another website will pop up, the next day somewhere else. Yeah. These are people in other countries that are doing this. They are behind technology and we can't get at them.
Julie in Cherryville writes, funny you should be talking about these scams today. My husband called me to look at a video today with just this scam. I didn't even look at it as I recognized just lost my spot there. As I recognized that it was a scam. Sadly, they were using Mark Carney as their face on the scam. So happy that you're covering this topic today. I love the show. Thank you so much for that, Julie. And Ali, are we going to see, I kind of know the answer, but how big of a role is AI going to be playing in politics going forward? You heard Julie say she saw one of these fake ads, which appeared to be Mark Carney. We see it appears to be, well-known journalists that are giving false information. Are we going to see that impacting elections and politics going forward?
I think we have seen it already.
Fair.
Absolutely. Okay. Especially because we have something in AI called recommender systems. Basically, they are targeting ads for specific individuals. And they see, basically, they show you what you want to see, and they fake videos that you want to believe in. Mm-hmm. And that way, they push you towards whatever they want. So it's already happening, and I think in the future it's gonna happen even more.
All right, we do have a call from Sally in Kelowna. Hi, Sally. Thanks for joining the show today.
Hi.
And I understand, unfortunately, you have a personal experience with this type of scam.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Over the last few months, it's happened to me. I don't know, so much confusion and trying to. I ended up reporting it to the RCMP, Anti-Fraud Canada. Mm-hmm. And I had to change my bank accounts. I had to do a whole lot of things. And I had to have my computer looked at and my cell phone, clearing things off of there that they had gotten on. It's horrific. And now I don't know what to do. I've lost so much money, and I'm just trying to push on.
Well, Sally.
They have these... if you Google this cryptocurrency, they have websites that say they can recover your amount. Mm. how do you know that? I mean, how do you even know it's real anymore?
Right. No, and I think that's, and I am so sorry that you're going through this, Sally, and I really appreciate your call. But I think that is also a concern that she brings up, is that even somebody that perhaps has been scammed and is attempting to rectify the situation can then fall victim to another scam that sort of preys on these. It's like a cottage industry to deal with the people that are attempting to rectify the scam that they've fallen into. So it's a never-ending loop. How, Pam, can somebody ensure that they're dealing with somebody that they can trust with their money, that is a legitimate financial advisor, that they will know where their funding's going to, and that is there to help them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there is a website called aretheyregistered.ca. You can go directly to that website. And speaking of websites, if you have any concerns about that, you can get to it through the BC Securities Commission's website, bcsc.bc.ca. But you can go to that website and put in someone's name and find out if they are registered to sell investments and what specific investments they are trained to sell. Don't ever buy something from somebody online. Check that out first.
Okay. We do have a couple of emails I'll get to quick. Ralph writes, can we use AI to detect and alert us to AI scams? That's definitely what we've got to work on next. And Joanna Victoria writes, I am a senior and I do have money to invest. My problem is getting personalized service with a human. The same goes for government services. People are always pointed online. I refuse to do this, and it frustrates the bank staff because I just say, no, I will not renew online. You prepare the documents and I will come in and sign them. And I do think that is a very valid point, is we have seen such a shift to online services, especially during and after the pandemic, that it's become so common for people to be online that you do trust it. Ali, I do want to ask you before we run out of time. I've just got about 45 seconds left, but are there any ways that we can embrace AI and it can actually improve our lives in terms of being secure and in terms of our finances?
I think the only way is to use our common sense and try to avoid trusting systems and trusting people so quickly.
All right.
And meanwhile, try to use some of the AI tools that are available online.
Ali, I am so sorry we're right out of time, but I want to thank you both for joining us. So very appreciated.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Amy.